Cannot hear you. You might have to unmute your mic.
There we go. Hello. Welcome to the Boss FM Town Hall. I am Michaela.
And I am Jaleesa. We will be your hosts for tonight.
So our purpose for this town hall is to increase the voter turnout and overall participation in the election, which has already started. So thank you guys so much for getting registered and voting. But we also want to keep everyone informed with the latest updates of the candidates and what's going on in the voting process.
And if you guys have any questions, feel free to drop it in the chat or tag us on Twitter at BossFMDigital or at Black News Alerts, or use our hashtag BossFMTownHall. We will answer any and all questions at the end of the show.
Now, without further ado, let's get started. So, this past Tuesday, September 29th, former Vice President Joe Biden and current President Donald Trump went head-to-head in their first presidential debate. Now, Chris Wallace was our moderator. He is a Fox News reporter, and they did something. And the first topic was Trump's nomination of Amy Coney Barrett, which she is currently undergoing her trial and processing. So there are a lot of things going on, but unfortunately, we have lost Ruth Bader Ginsburg, so may she rest in peace.
Yeah, and Trump also stated that he won the election and it's his job and right to nominate someone. But Joe Biden feels like the American people have the right to have a say in who is nominated. Joe also feels like that we should wait until we see the results of the election, as he feels it would be better to wait around February. But they were both interrupting each other, and it quickly went from Biden versus Trump to Trump versus the moderator, freaking Chris Wallace.
Yeah, Trump honestly made it clear that he wants to repeal Obamacare and the Affordable Care Act. And, the whole time, Chris Wallace was asking, he wanted to know, what does that look like? What is his new plan that he keeps talking about? And all he said was that he wants to cut drug prices 80 to 90%. So, we didn't really get a clear answer on that. He was a little too busy fighting the moderator to actually answer the question. But
yeah, I agree. The question to Vice President Joe Biden was, will he add a public option to Obamacare? And if it will end private insurance and create a government takeover of healthcare? Biden claims that he doesn't. The program is for people who are so poor that they can qualify for Medicaid and that they can get care for free. In most states, except for the ones whose governors deny the eligible for free Medicaid, if you qualify for Medicaid, you will automatically be enrolled in the public option.
Yeah, and moving on to the topic of the Supreme Court, as much as, we love Ruth Bader Ginsburg, we have lost her, and to see that Senate Republicans and Justice Barrett are filibustering to get this nomination through is definitely one of the most unprecedented things we've seen so far. For those who don't know, a filibuster is a political procedure, and basically one or more members of Congress debate over a proposed piece of legislation, and its whole purpose is basically to delay or entirely prevent a decision being made on that piece of legislation or that proposal. And there has also been conversation that the Biden administration would possibly be packing the court, which was also talked about in the debate. And we didn't get quite a clear answer on that either. So during his portion of the questioning in the debate, his response, and I can't even describe it. Let's just take a look.
Why would you answer that question?
The question is,
Justice, radical left.
Will you shut up, man?
Listen, who is on your list, Joe? Who's on your list?
Right, gentlemen, I think
Will you shut up, man? I think that's such a mood for 2020. I feel like that. I feel like that's such a mood. So, is this the first time as a president on a stage on national television has said, shut up?
I don't even know, but I know in the real world, in the street, definitely is not the first or last time someone will be telling President Donald Trump to shut up. Next on the agenda was the topic of COVID-19. Vice President Joe Biden brought up that due to the virus, 200,000 are dead and 7 million are infected. 40,000 people a day are infected with COVID. He brought up that Trump, knowing this since February, how deadly it was, Biden believes that they should have started and should still continue be providing protective gear, and the money that the House has passed should be given to the people who actually need the help in order to keep their businesses open.
Yeah, and Trump's response was no shocker at all. He has repeated the belief that it's China's fault and it's the Chinese virus. And he believes that closing the port to China was the best decision in comparison to Joe Biden, who believed that they should have left it open. Now, Trump did bring up that H1N1 disease, and when during the time of outbreak, it was a disaster. Biden countered that, however, with only 14,000 people died, not 200,000. And they managed it without shutting down the economy. So there were two very distinct points made. And when the topic of the vaccine was brought up, the head of the CDC, Dr. Redfield, said it would be summer before the vaccine would be available to people. Now, Trump disagrees. But when Dr. Slowly, head of operation of Warp Speed, said the same thing, Trump currently believes the vaccine could be available at a sooner time, but it's politics, man. They're playing politics. And whenever the vaccine is ready, he claims that the military is ready to give over 200,000 vaccines a day, but we just don't know when that will be. There's been no documentation showing that, it's going to be ready before then. So we're on the lookout for that.
And this is a perfect segue for the reopening of the country, right? Vice President Joe Biden believes in providing financial aid, and the proper sanitation will help businesses as they open. And during this point when he just becomes frustrated in the debate, right? And another iconic moment of the night when he goes, when he just shushed for a moment. Joe Biden claims Trump won't even meet Nancy Pelosi or Chuck Schumer's anything for proper funding for the government. And that brings us to the economy.
Yeah, where's this $750? I need to check. So the fact that it is alleged that President Donald Trump only paid $750, not 700,000, not 700 million, $750, 0.00 in federal income tax, y'all. Anyway, he claims that he paid millions in taxes. However, records have shown in a New York Times investigative article, that he only paid us $750. So who does he owe the money to? And that definitely was brought up in the debates. Vice President Joe Biden wants to eliminate the very tax cuts that allowed him to do that. So what do you do from here?
Right. It was an interesting proposal from Vice President Biden, actually, because he proposed a new $4 trillion in a new decade on a new tax on individuals making more than $400,000 a year. Okay, so that's where that's coming in. He believes that his economic plan will create 7 million more jobs compared to Trump in 4 years, and it will create an additional $1 trillion in economic growth. So Biden wants the corporate tax 28% instead of 21%, but President Trump believes that the New Deal will actually hurt the economy due to us coming out of recession. I wonder whose fault it was.
And it was so interesting because I'm in Atlanta and he came down here and he proposed this new Black New Deal and this new economy plan for the Black community. And I want to know where the money's coming from because the economy is currently shut down. However, since we're on the topic of race, President Trump was asked about his response 3 years ago to the issue that happened in Charlottesville over the protests of Confederate statues. And when he commented, there were fine people on both sides. Now, he refused to answer the question during the debates and would discredit he refused to discredit any white supremacists, which I have a hard time saying out loud.
Right.
However, when he was responding to the question, he went with a stand back, stand by response. I don't really know what that means.
You know?
But I don't think that's telling them to not be white supremacists. So, but instead, Trump does believe that he has done more for Black Americans than any president, with the exception of Abraham Lincoln, which, and we can get all day and talk about that.
And let me just add in my 2 cents real quick, okay? Because we're talking about Donald Trump, right? President Donald Trump, owner of the Trump Tower. This is the same guy that labeled a side of the Trump Tower years ago C for colored.
Let's talk about it.
Americans can enter and exit his building on the other side. So everything that comes out of his mouth is obviously not a fact, but more of a delusional opinion. Next, each candidate was asked, why should voters trust them over their opponent? Biden believes Trump has walked away from equality. In the case of groups accompanied by the KKK, he brings up again that Trump did not answer clearly why he believed that there were fine people on both sides. Like, I just don't get it, because when George Floyd was killed during the peaceful protest, Biden also brought up how Trump had the military use tear gas so he could walk through the crowd to the church across the street, hold up a holy Bible, and take a picture of himself.
Now, that seems a little dictator to me, but, Trump did follow up mentioning the 1994 crime bill in the press, which Joe Biden allegedly called African Americans super predators. So no one's really looking good right now. The Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act of 1994 received bipartisan support at the time, but has been criticized for some of its provisions, such as mandatory minimums, impact on mass incarceration, and so much more, y'all. The legislation was aimed at addressing the rise in crime at the time and contained a host of policing and crime prevention provisions, but it included a 3 strikes mandatory life sentence for repeat violent offenders and funding for community policing in prisons and assault weapons bans and the Violent Act Against Women. And there was so much that just came with that bill that has impacted Black Americans. And it's authorized $30.2 billion, y'all, with a B. According to congressional research, it has authorized $30.2 billion in federal crime measures. I don't see any pros or cons here. I'm seeing the Black community has been done wrong all around, but that's just me.
And being on the issue, Breonna Taylor's case was brought up, in which the officers were not charged. The question being, does it raise a question of separate but unequal system of justice in the Black community in this country? Vice President Biden believes, yes, there is a systemic injustice in education, work, law enforcement. He also believes that there are bad apples in the police force that ruin it for the majority. He believes that they also have to be held accountable, though. So he wanted to work it out with transparency, was his word.
Yeah, and Trump was asked why the administration directed federal agencies to end racial sensitivity training that addresses white privilege and critical race theory. And he says he ended it because he believes it is racist. And people were complaining that they were asked to do things that were insane. He believes it was a radical revolution taking place in the military and schools. He did not like that the courses were teaching people to hate the country. Now, Biden, on the other hand, believes people need to be aware and feels the only way to bring the country together is to bring everyone together.
And interesting enough, Trump states that there was a tremendous division in the Obama and Biden era, right? He said it was more violence than what he's seeing now in Trump's America, which is super surprising to me. The dramatic increase this summer, Trump blames on the Democratic leading states, okay? He believes that it's a party issue, and it's the Democratic Party who has the issue specifically.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So while we're on the topic of law and order, so Biden was talking about reimagining policing, and he is actually opposed to defunding the local police. Biden has explicitly stated that he believes the police force needs more assistance. And he believes that when they show up having psychologists to keep them from using force and talk people down, that community policing and getting to know people in the communities, that he believes that it will ultimately help every community, not just communities of color, but also especially communities of colors at the same time, because, you know, they face it the most. So with current protests going on and the violence that is going on behind the deaths of these young Black people, Biden believes that the violence helps Trump's campaign and is actually being used as a campaigning tool from Trump's side. And that if Biden were in office, it would be 15% less violent.
And then right after that, he addressed Trump as he defends the military personnel after he declared his son, Beau Biden, a loser. Joe corrected him and said that he was a patriot loser because Trump's blow of the night and how he mentioned Hunter Biden was dishonorably discharged for the use of cocaine and that he didn't have a job until Joe was in office. The whole debate was, it's laughable. It's laughable.
I agree completely, actually. But moving on to climate change, because y'all, these fires are still burning. So we definitely need to talk about this. Trump wants crystal clean water and air without destroying business. He brings up the Paris Accord and believes that they should plant 1 billion trees and enforce the management of forests. Now, President Biden, on the other hand, is for the Recovery Act, which brought down renewable energy costs to the same amount as coal, gas, and oil. He wants to turn the federal fleet to adding 500,000 charging stations in all the highways that will be built in the future. Now, taking buildings and making them weatherized, he pledges to rejoin the Paris Accord and plans on upgrading 4 million buildings, weatherizing 2 million homes in 4 years, and building 1.5 energy efficient homes. Now, Biden says it will create millions of well-paying jobs and tax incentives, and says he doesn't support the Green New Deal, but supports the Biden New Deal. Now, I will say, I do like how detailed it is, but I can't knock the issue of the economy. You know, Americans are losing jobs every day. And as much as I am for all things that make the world better in the sense of climate change, I also want Americans to have jobs and to have food on the table. So, you know, what do you think? Do you think this will work?
I honestly think, just based off what I've seen, being aware from my past 2 elections, this is my first election I'll actually be voting in, but I was really paying attention to the 2016 election. And what I have learned is that they have to have an answer for everything that's being asked of them from the American people, right? Is everything able to be executed? Is everything able to be executed correctly, or how they said it was going to be executed before the election? Probably not. Like you just said, it sounds great. It sounds good.
Right.
As the American people would say, it sounds good. But are you really going to do that? And is this more important than our unemployment rate?
Yeah. I think it definitely, it brings up a conversation that whether you're, a boomer, a millennial, a Gen Z, I think the conversation is necessary because me being a part of Generation Z, I'm coming into the workforce. I need to make sure there are going to be jobs for me when I get out of college. And millennials, they're in it right now. They're suffering job loss from the pandemic. Boomers are suffering increasing death rates. So, coming out of a pandemic, how can we approach the climate change situation in the most economically feasible and just health-wise safe manner that will allow everyone to kind of be a little at ease? I think we could use some woosah after 2020. This is a lot.
Fresh air, right?
Right.
So as the debate wrapped up with the topic of voting integrity, Biden believes that mail-in ballots won't be manipulated, okay? Also, the polls will be open. It supports people to vote. Trump says mail-in ballots are a disaster. Ballots are being found in creeks and trash cans, and he's calling them frauds.
Yeah, the fact is some states' election workers are forbidden by law to process ballots until election day. It could be days until we find out who the president is. And Trump urges voters to go into the polls and watch people vote. He says that people cheat. And while Biden pledges not to claim victory until all the votes are counted, there's no way to tell how those votes will be counted. And we want to make sure that it's happening in the safest way possible. And we definitely don't want to discredit all the hard work that poll workers do to make sure that, this is a very fair election.
On Wednesday, October 7th, the vice presidential debate took place in Salt Lake City, Utah, with Vice President Mike Pence and California Senator Kamala Harris facing off.
Yes, the debate was definitely an upgrade from the presidential debate, which left voters feeling frustrated at the back and forth banter and over speaking between the two. I couldn't.
You can definitely sense the professionalism between Senator Kamala and even Mike Pence, right? I'm just going to go ahead and give it to them because they were very polite with one another. The night started off with moderator Susan Page asking Kamala what a Biden-Harris administration would do in January, February, that a Trump administration did not do. Harris came with the heat, you know what I'm saying? She let everyone know what she believes in, which is that the American people have witnessed what is the biggest failure in history of this country. She said this because 210,000 dead in this country over several months. I mean, over 7 million people who have contracted this disease. 1 in 5 businesses have closed. Frontline workers who she said were treated like sacrificial lambs. She brought up the fact that January 28th, both the president and the vice president were informed of the pandemic, that it was airborne and that it was lethal and that it will affect many people. And if they did actually inform the American people in January instead of March, how different everything could have possibly turned out. And not being biased or picking sides here, but those are the questions that needs to be asked here, because we are down bad and we've been down bad since March. So the American people need to know, what are we supposed to be expecting for the next 4 years to come, and how are you guys going to handle this?
And, honestly, that's such a good point, because the question was asked. Mike Pence was asked, why was the death toll in the United States so much higher than every other country, even who matches our economic status? And he stated that from the first day, the president has put the American people first. And he claims that the fact that he suspended all travel from China, which Joe Biden opposed, that he took the necessary steps and he made the unprecedented move that no other person would have made. And he believes that saved thousands of lives, and we're able to begin and reinvent testing and send supplies and start developing a vaccine. And honestly, it just has me looking for evidence because these are really bold claims, and I see more death numbers than I do PPE. So,
and speaking of the vaccine itself, the moderator, Susan, she asked Kamala if she would take a vaccine because half of Americans are saying that they wouldn't take a vaccine. And she said that if the public health professionals like Dr. Fauci and doctors like him instruct us to take it, then she will be the first in line to take it. But the big but is if President Trump will tell Americans to take it, because if she says if he tells Americans to take it, she won't take it.
Definitely. And one thing that I found interesting was when Susan announced that history would be made because of the result of this election, that will be whoever is elected will be the oldest in history. Now, Donald Trump is going on 74, but Joe Biden is going on 78. So we are definitely raising some concerns with the voters here because Trump was recently hospitalized due to a COVID diagnosis. These are, serious things. Was he, a part of this trial? And, these are questions that the American people had leading up to his release from the hospital is, okay, if he's so pro-vaccine, is he now a part of, the vaccine trial? And I think, it's definitely shines some light on the American people's true belief in vaccines. We've had the flu vaccine for years, but this is something new. This is something that, the American people, they want to know. But, Pence decided to backtrack in the debate because he wanted to respond to Kamala's remarks of how the current administration failed. Now, Kamala's facial expressions seemed to be completely unbothered. The poker face. It was actually one of the trending topics on social media after, and the memes. It was the memes like at Tommy 1997. Actually, he was the one who said Kamala Harris is the definition of if my mouth doesn't say it, my face will. And honestly, I couldn't agree more. I feel like meme of the year goes to Kamala Harris. We will give her her props where they are due.
We will let her reclaim her time. Okay, and that's the great thing about social media, though, because it gives you that comedic relief, right? Especially when the tensions are just so high during this election time. We mentioned the age of both nominees. Well, Susan asked one of the most relevant questions. She said, do voters deserve to know the status of health for public officials? Vice President Pence, he believes that the American people deserve to know the status, as well as Kamala. Kamala, on the other hand, was excited to get to this question because she was so focused on the word transparency, her running mate, Joe Biden. And she brought up the importance of transparency and how she believes Donald Trump has not been transparent with the American people. Let me give you guys an example. His tax statements, okay, and how they are alleged $750 paid in taxes. She didn't forget to throw in the alleged $400 million debt either.
Because waiting. And I was wait. She was waiting for the word transparent to be thrown out because, or honestly, any word related to that word, because she was locked and loaded with everything they have not been transparent about. She had a mission for this debate. She did her homework for it too, because she was ready with that one. Now, Pence's response that President Trump stated those documents were inaccurate and were somehow made up. Okay. Is a perfect segue for the next topic of the night, which is the economy. With the unemployment rate in September at a decline of 7.9%, hundreds and thousands of workers have stopped looking for work, leaving 11 million jobs that existed in the beginning of the year that have not been replaced. those hit hardest in the Black community, Latinx community, and women. Let's talk about this. Because these are communities that are already struggling, y'all. These are communities that are hired at notably less and worse rates than that of a white community, of that of the male community, of that of the cisgender community. There are so many. There are already walls here. So for COVID to knock us back 11 million jobs, y'all.
And this is my thing, right? Because I was one of the Americans who, you know, we're both minority. So I'm already a part of the minority. I'm already a part of Gen Z. So environmentally, it depends on where you are anyway, depending on what type of job you get, how old you are when you get the job, if you have a certain degree or whatever. So we already have these hurdles, right? Then when Corona happens, I lost my job. I lost both of my jobs. I was working 2 jobs and I was relying solely on unemployment. And there's good sides and bad sides to it, because you have people that were like me, working extra crazy, never had a day off for 60 days at a time, that now I'm off of work, I get some type of relief, I have unemployment. But then you have the bad side of it, right? People have kids, people have families. You know, there aren't a lot of people just living by themselves, right? So when you talk about 11 million jobs, we don't even care that they were created. We care that they're not there anymore, right? And I just feel like the way that the numbers are going, I'm just like scared. It's not even Halloween yet. It's like Spooky Town or something.
And it's been like that way before October got here. Because it's one of those things, like you said, it's like the realities behind these people. And I think, you know, we get so wrapped up in politics and just the idea of what politics is and, you know, what it's supposed to be and what we want it to be. Y'all, we have to look at the reality of the situation. 11 million jobs means more than 11 million people don't have food on the table. Their kids can't eat. Like, these are real problems. These are real issues. And it's one of those things that, you know, I think, and honestly, being as bipartisan as any here, I think both candidates have lost sight of that. And I think Joe Biden has tried to remind us a little more. However, I personally don't see either candidate showing any proof of, you know, understanding on a real topic. You know, government jobs haven't gone anywhere, or at least on the Hill. So, you know, these are things that true Americans face. And we're talking, we will be the first country to talk about the American dream. I don't know what dream we're living anymore.
Hello, it's more like the American nightmare.
Thank you.
When Kamala, when she talked about the tax bill that Trump passed, in which she stated benefiting the top 1%, okay, leading into a $2 trillion deficit that Americans, the everyday average middle class Americans, will have to pay for. She states that the Biden administration will repeal that tax bill and invest it into the American people in topics of research, education, public reconstruction, all that good stuff. The most beneficial part was going to a 2-year community college for free. Hello, if you come from a family that makes less than $125,000 a year, you can go to a public university for free. Hello, and cutting down $10,000 off your student loan debt. Goodbye. Kamala also made it clear that Joe Biden will not increase taxes if you make less than $400,000 a year, and that's on period. Because in this portion, when the second iconic moment introduces itself as Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking.
I've been hearing that all week. I've been using it all week. I'll be at work like, I was speaking.
I'm speaking.
Now, this section of the debate, Kamala has also brought up how Joe was responsible for the Recovery Act. The American Recovery and Reinvestment Act of 2009, which President Obama signed into law February 17th of 2009, was an unprecedented action to stimulate the economy, and it included measures to modernize our nation's energy and communication infrastructure and enhance energy independence.
Not to mention that the Affordable Care Act brought healthcare to over 200 million Americans and helped those with pre-existing conditions, okay? Because Pence claims that the Obamacare was a disaster. And to improve healthcare to, protect pre-existing conditions of the American people. But from this topic, everyone segued into climate change as Pence brought up fracking. For those unaware of the term hydraulic fracturing, which is also called fracking, it is a well simulation technique involving the factoring of bedrock foundations by pressurized liquid. Fracking is a debated environmental and political issue, I would say. Advocates insist that it is safe and an economical source of clean energy. Critics, however, claim that fracking can destroy drinking water supplies, it can pollute the air, contribute to greenhouse gases that cause global warming, and trigger earthquakes. So it's like, I don't know where to go. I don't know which one to choose.
Yeah, and Vice President Pence was asked if he believes the scientific community, which concluded that natural disasters and man-made climate change has made wildfires bigger, hotter, more deadly, and made hurricanes slower, wetter, more damaging. Mike Pence answered that, according to all of the best estimates, the air and land are cleaner than any time ever recorded. I mean, he mentioned the Outdoors Act, which was the largest investment into the public land and parks. For those who are unaware, this act will use revenues from energy development to provide up to $1.9 billion a year for 5 years to provide needed maintenance for critical facilities and infrastructure in our national parks, forests, wildlife, refuges, things of that nature. But they also include, especially because we're coming out of Indigenous Peoples Day, Indigenous schools. And it will also use royalties from offshore oil and natural gas to permanently fund the Land and Water Conservation Fund to the tune of $900 million a year to invest in conservation and recreation opportunities across the country.
Okay, so Vice President Pence completed his answer by stating Joe and Kamala will put America back in the Paris Climate Accord, which is the Paris Agreement. It's an agreement within the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. It deals with greenhouse gas emissions mitigations, adaptation, finance, and to impose the Green New Deal. He says it would crush American energy and increase the energy costs for families. He also states that the progress they have made is because of the free market economy, and America has reduced CO2 more than anybody else in the agreement. Mm-hmm.
If I may, just kind of interject my own little.
Have your piece.
I find it very funny that, you're giving, and I'm just kind of going back to, the Outdoors Act. You're providing $1.9 billion a year, and you're putting it into the maintenance of these parks, which is great, and that's something that we need. But only $900 million of that is going to opportunities across the country. And when I personally was doing my own digging about the Paris Agreement, as you said, it is an agreement, y'all. It's not, some American thing that, it's an agreement with other countries. So when I was personally doing my own research into the Paris Agreement, to me, that was an image of accountability. It held every country to a standard. And this is the standard that we, as the European Union, are going to abide by. And this is what, we're going to hold everyone to. So, I understand there's a lot to debate because there's a lot on the line. Like we said, we want to be able to approach climate change, keeping our economy and our health and our country's health in mind. However, we also do want to make an actual change in climate change. So, as much as I'm excited about keeping the parks and wildlife and the indigenous schools open. I'm also very concerned that we won't have water in the next 20 years. But it's a lot to talk about. And as we move on to the next question, Susan Page was asked Vice President Mike Pence, about America's relationship with China, which is critical in all of this. And Mike Pence said, China is to blame for COVID-19, and President Trump is not happy about it, and states that Joe Biden is a cheerleader for China and that they want to hold China accountable for the pandemic. Now, what does that even look like?
And my thing is, Senator Harris, she was asked the same question, right? The Trump administration's approach has resulted in the loss of American jobs, lives, standing. She believes there's a weird obsession President Trump has had by getting rid of every accomplishment achieved by the President Obama and Vice President Biden administration, and that's just facts. That's not even an opinion. And we saw it in the presidential debate, and now we're seeing it in the vice presidential debate. The most important fact to point out is that the Trump administration got rid of the team that was created to monitor pandemics, filled with disease experts, dispatched to China by the Obama administration to examine what is predictable and what may happen. But he got rid of all of that.
Yeah, and a government shutdown could have possibly been avoided if that team was still in existence. Like, moving along to what Mike Pence believes the role of American leadership means, because we have to get to that. He states that standing strong with allies and strengthening their relationships. Trump moved the embassy to Jerusalem, something Biden promised and didn't do. But in an interesting fact that the viewers should know, of course, is after a strike on Soleimani, where there was a counterattack on our troops in Iraq, in which the troops had suffered serious brain injuries and other bodily harm, in which Trump referred to them as headaches. He has called and referred to our troops as suckers and losers. Russia had bounties on the heads of American soldiers. And when Trump talked 6 times, 6 conversations, y'all, to Vladimir Putin, never mentioned it once.
Let's move on to the Supreme Court. Okay, I just had to take a little of silence because it's just sad, and it's going to get even more sadder. Vice President is so enthusiastic to see Miss Amy Coney Barrett, who is an American attorney. She's also a jurist and an academic who serves as a circuit judge on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 7th Circuit. President Donald Trump nominated Barrett to the 7th House because he believes that she's going to bring a lifetime of experience to the Supreme Court of the United States, whatever that means. Mike Pence asked Kamala if they will pack the Supreme Court if Judge Amy Coney is elected to the Biden administration, and we'll pack the court to 10 instead of 9, which has been a staple in the Supreme Court for 150 years.
Yeah, and can we get another I'm speaking video for this? Because
but let's get an I'm speaking video.
Let's get an I'm speaking for this, because
pack the Supreme Court to get your way.
I'm so glad we went through a little history lesson. Let's do that a little more. In 1864.
Well, I'd like you to answer the question.
No, Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking. I'm speaking. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
I'm speaking from Senator Harris. A mini history lesson was provided for him. Come on.
Give us a listen.
Oh, okay. But she believes it would be the American people who make the decision. And she brings up a very valid point now. 50 people who the president appointed for a lifetime sentence, none of them are Black or of any other minority.
Not surprised.
Not surprised at all. I don't know if anyone else has seen this picture, but I recently saw a picture on Instagram comparing Barack Obama's interns to President Donald J. Trump's intern. And moving on, which leads to a perfect transition. Racial injustice.
Oh, so yeah, you know that's my highlight. You know that's my okay. We all remember in March how Breonna Taylor, a 26-year-old EMT who was shot and killed after police officers executed our narcotics investigation. The police said they identified themselves while the boyfriend stated on the contrary, and he used a registered gun to fire a shot at an officer and wounded him. The officers then fired more than 20 rounds and claimed that it was an act of self-defense. The question is, was justice done? Kamala answers that she doesn't believe that justice was done and that her death, Breonna Taylor, to be exact, was unjustifiable. She also mentions George Floyd, who was also unjustifiably taken from us. The perfect strangers around the world of this country, of every race, marched and fought for us to finally achieve the ideal of equal justice under law. That's it. Just equal justice under the law. She believes that bad cops are bad for good cops, which is kind of the same thing that Biden was saying a week earlier in his debate when he said that bad cops are just bad apples that make it harder or worsen or ruin the law enforcement for the majority.
Yeah, and to see those protests not only spread across the entirety of our country, but to spread to other countries, and for other countries to say we see what's going on and we stand with the Black community. I had to take a moment of silence when that question was asked during the debate, because Vice President Pence. But before we get to that, because I'm jumping ahead here, but Senator Harris also said that their plan, Joe Biden being Joe Biden and Senator Harris' plans will immediately ban chokeholds and corroded holds, which will require they will also require a national registry for police officers who break the law. And on the issue of criminal justice reform, get rid of private prisons and cash bails. I'm gonna take a second just to explain this, because I didn't know what cash bails were. I didn't know the big deal about spending cash to get out. But y'all, not everybody has cash. Not everybody has cash to get out of this. And we need to end that today. But moving on.
Arrested with $50,000 in their purse.
Just, start to run. And that to me is the prime reason, you mentioned George Floyd. That is the prime reason Derek Chauvin is out of jail, because he had $1 million bail. How does he have $1 million just ready, just to, get out of jail whenever you feel? You're good. You can go home. But y'all, they also want to decriminalize marijuana, which is huge for the Black community.
Yeah.
And we know how the smallest amount anywhere near you, even if sometimes it's not on you, will get you time in jail and sometimes to a federal penitentiary. Y'all, we have to maybe not even decriminalize, maybe even just, shorten the mandatory minimum.
Something.
I know the answer.
Something.
We got to do something about that.
Yeah.
And expunge the records of those who were convicted, because these are boys. These are boys who now have a record following them for the rest of their lives.
Mm-hmm. And this is the most important thing for me, because everything else is cool, even decriminalizing it, cool, but expunging the records of those previously convicted, not convicted from now on, previously, and getting those people out of jail or their record clean, thank you. Thank you. These are the things that we are looking for, because not to say that the whole Black community is what funds the marijuana ring, but the Black community are the ones getting locked up for it. While you go to Seattle and go to a regular weed shop or whatever, and there's white people everywhere smoking and chilling and not worried about anything. It's not fair. So that's the part that just stuck out the most to me, and it really is going to sit close to me. That's something that I'm going to keep in mind when I vote. Vice President Mike Pence was given the same question: was justice done? Okay, and his answer was that this is my Mike Pence voice. The loss of any innocent American life breaks my heart.
Girl.
Trust the justice system is what he's telling us, okay? Then Senator Harris told him, as a former prosecutor, that it is remarkable that an in-panel grand jury reviewing all of this evidence wrong. Also, what happened to George Floyd, there's no excuse for what happened, but there's also no excuse for the looting and the rioting that's going on. He kind of put it on a balance there. He kind of tried to scale it out, almost as if it was equal. He said that the narrative and the idea is that biased agent minorities is a great insult to law enforcement. And yeah, so we, the minorities, are biased, and we are also insulting law enforcement by trying to hold them accountable for killing us unjustifiably.
How dare we?
How dare us? My bad.
How dare we want to be treated as human beings? You're asking too much.
Where did we get that from?
We are asking way too much. First of all, chill. I'm not even going to say anything else on that but what I will say, The Fly.
Our friend, The Fly.
Our American savior. Like,
we love The Fly, y'all.
The Fly. Like, can we just take a look at it's right here. The Fly. Look at The Fly. I don't know about y'all, but I was staring at that fly for the rest of the night. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not even gonna sit here and lie. Perfect. Amazing. Even better. It was like he smelt what Pence was saying and was like, ooh, food. But let me chill. Garbage. The Fly. Trending. Everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I love The Fly. The Fly's my new friend. People on Twitter were definitely having fun with The Fly. But Senator Harris also brought up when the president refused to condemn white supremacists during the debate. She brought up that a pattern is obvious here. You know, a Muslim ban at the start of his 4 years, you know, calling Mexicans rapists and criminals. On the issue of Charlottesville, find people on both sides. Y'all, we can...
That's his 3 strikes right there, Michaela.
I felt like, if we're going to do strikes on somebody, but, I felt like The Fly did a great job of smelling it and saying, here's where to land. Mm-hmm. I felt the Fly is the new patriot. I'm sorry, y'all. Y'all's comments are killing me. I'm supposed to be on the program here, and y'all's comments are over here killing me. It looks like what it was supposed to be, the second presidential debate between Joe Biden and Donald Trump, was canceled. Mm-hmm. So this week we got some news. After President Donald Trump's diagnosis of COVID-19, he is now officially tested negative, which we are very happy for. as Americans, we don't want anyone to get COVID, regardless of their political beliefs. Let's be clear. We are very happy and proud that the president and other Congress members are now COVID-free and are safe. So we are very happy about that. However, due to his COVID, situation, the committee for the debates proposed a virtual debate as to keep everyone safe. Donald Trump was not having it, and therefore the debate has been canceled due to COVID-19, which is the new tagline of 2020, due to COVID-19.
And that's right. And this is my thing, because it left many viewers, me included, very frustrated. Okay. It was an hour and a half of arguing, going back and forth, and an obvious representation of what it looks like when Donald Trump is not prepared. And we see it all the time, right? Like Kamala Harris was saying, like, it's a pattern. We see it all the time. And now that you're saying no to a virtual debate, what is it do you not want to talk about? What is it that does not want you to answer the American people that you are representing to the rest of the world? Why are you disconnecting from us? Why? And that's my thing. And I personally just want to highlight that Trump said that he wants to wait for a doctor to clear him for public events, but the commission said it will not be a reverse decision, saying it's an abundance of caution with health concerns, which is a bummer, because the third debate was set to have questions in a town hall fashion like this one from the average voter. And that's what I mean. Are you running away from us? Joe and Camilla can't wait to answer our questions. They can't wait to run up to the pole. And sometimes Mike Pence doesn't have a problem speaking either. But it just seems like, are we beefing, Trump? Are we beefing?
You know, honestly, the question comes up. You know, the average voter, they want to know, and they want their answer, their questions to be answered. But at the same time, you know, the idea of a virtual debate it's new. It's something new. I'm all for safety. Don't get me wrong here. All for the safety. I'm all for going virtual if that's what it takes for everyone to be safe. However, I think the vice presidential debate was a great example, if we could, of what social distancing, wearing proper PPE, you know, preparing for that. I feel like a physical debate could possibly still be an option. However, I will say the precautions that were not taken in the first debate were noted, and some would argue that they were the reason he was diagnosed with COVID-19. So, you know, I'm interested to see if there was a physical debate, would there be an attitude shift? Would his family all of a sudden own masks? And would he and his wife be sporting those masks at this debate? So it's definitely worth a discussion. But, you know, the most concerning thing that I think everyone is asking right now is, you know, we're talking about all these policies and all these different pieces of legislation and everything that's going on, but what are they going to do about it? Now, the first 100 days of a presidential administration is known to set the standard for the next 4 years. But, you know, we need to know what their priorities are.
Yes, and that's why we are about to roll into the 100 days of action. Yes, so like Michaela just said, the first 100 days of a presidential administration is known to set the standard for the next 4 years. And it also shows us the American people where the administration's priorities lie. Michaela, let's talk about the lobbyists.
So there are a lot of lobbyists and organizations that are out there pushing their agenda. And, there's nothing wrong with that. There are a lot of great causes out there, and there are a lot of great organizations trying to do some great things. And, we're never going to hate on that. But we do want to highlight just one particular one, Black America. Now, there's no formal organization for Black America. Let's just go ahead and get that out of the way. We're not saying there's an organization or speaking for all Black Americans. However, a nice chunk of Black America has been talking up a storm, right after the murder of George Floyd, may he rest in peace. There were a lot of hands thrown in the air, and there were a lot of people standing up and understanding that there's more to do and that there's something that they can do. And Ice Cube, the legendary hip hop icon, is someone who said, enough is enough. And he unveiled a contract with Black America. Now, this contract is supposed to address systemic oppression that Black Americans have faced for over 400 years. And it's supposed to be a push for solution to make a lasting and comprehensive change that will actually allow Black Americans to get some kind of foot in the door.
And Ice Cube, among many celebrities and activists, have publicly demanded that politicians, including the current presidential nominees, address the contract and commit to implementing corresponding legislation within those first 100 days. He's also encouraged the Black community to challenge the contract and make suggestions so that it could be a better representation of the struggles that Black Americans face and the solutions that might holistically help.
Now, neither candidate has released any official plans for their first 100 days. Nothing has been documented or is explicitly noted to be within their first 100 days plan. However, this has definitely gained some traction and started some conversations. And, I was looking at the contract the other day and just reading it, and Ice Cube had posted a video while I was reading it, funnily enough, saying that both sides have actually started to sit down and have discussions about this contract. So I think it's interesting to see that, people are not only sitting down, but they're putting money on the table and they're putting legislation on the table, and they're offering the Black community something, which is more than I can personally say I have seen us offered, but that is my personal biased opinion. I'm not even gonna lie. But
roll into some questions.
All right.
Okay. Let's see. Questions.
I am right here. So the first one is, do you feel like Kamala's prosecution record might come back to bite her when election day comes? That's a question from Taylor Janelle. Jaleesa, why don't you start? What do you think?
I think the way that she's been going about her vice presidential campaign is completely different than how she was going about her presidential campaign when she was originally running for president. And when she was running for president versus vice president, she was giving us very boss woman power. I'm a prosecutor, I am a senator, this is what I do. Trust me, get behind my back, I will lead the pack. But now that she's kind of in the passenger seat instead of the driver's seat, and especially who her running mate is, that matters as well. And ever since she has came out that she will be running for vice president, she's been giving me more softer vibes. I think that if she continues to be on the track that she's on, as far as coming with the facts, still being polite and respectful, but still dropping her iconic gems here and there, she will be fine.
I mean, I can definitely agree with you there. I think she has definitely taken a shift, an energy shift here. I think personally, I had the same concern. You know, I kept seeing all these things about her prosecuting record, and when I finally looked into it, not that I found something completely different, but I saw small narrative shifts. So I think the key to any concerns that you have with either candidates is to dig. I think both candidates, being 100% honest here, both candidates have very strong opinions, and both candidates are right about something. Neither of us know. Please don't quote either of us here. But I think, you know, the best thing that we can do as American voters is to be an informed voter, is to find websites, to find sources that will give us that information. And y'all, Boss FM, Black News Alerts, we commit to doing that. So definitely check us out. However, if you are concerned of any bias or concerned of anything, do your own research. You know, the government is, whether we have an administration that is transparent or not, the government in its foundation is meant to be transparent with the people it is serving. So you can always find something. So if you are concerned personally about Kamala Harris's prosecution record, so that's my personal answer.
Love that answer. What other questions do we have today? Do you guys support anything Trump has done for the United States? It seems very biased here. I just continue to see bashing and nothing good on what Trump and Pence have actually done yet.
Okay.
Well, Mr. Ortiz, I can definitely tell you this will be my first time voting. As a voter, I try my best to look into the values and viewpoints of me and people who resonate with me, which will be Gen Zers, college students, kids that are about to go to college, kids that don't have jobs yet. Okay, we're not looking from a business standpoint here, which is most of the Trump's target audience, which is business owners or millionaires, people who have money, right? I'm not one of those people, and I'm going into my senior year of supposedly of college. And after that, after I get my diploma, I need a job because now I have bills. And if Trump tells me that he has a plan, but I don't see one, you know, I'm going to start looking more into the candidates that are telling me that they do have a plan and actually are giving me facts about their plan. You feel me? When it comes to presidential debates or candidates or voting, we do not walk by faith. We like to see the facts. We like to see some action. And as a young melanin American, it's hard to see what President Trump has done for us. It's definitely.
I think we have two different perspectives on voting. I definitely see what you're saying because I was taught to vote the same way. You know, vote what benefits you. However, I think as Americans, we've lost our sense of unity. And I would be lying if I said that I'm not voting for myself. Obviously, that would be an utter lie. However, I do try to look at the greater good of things. You know, I don't speak for the entire Black community. I don't speak for the entire Gen Z community. However, I do recognize my peers and those I'm around. And I recognize they have problems. I recognize what their life problems are, and I do my best to see what could be a holistic option. And I think Jalissa made a very valid point is I've yet to see options with President Trump. I've seen a lot of here. I'm going to tell you what I've seen a lot of. I've seen a lot of these orders, these presidential orders, and I haven't seen a lot of follow through. Quite honestly, I think one presidential order that I was particularly excited about, just because I thought I saw a glimpse of light here. He made a presidential order claiming to decrease the cost of insulin and other necessary medicines for those with pre-existing conditions. Now, this was during COVID, y'all. So I was super excited. You know, this is something that plagues Americans. I was watching a small documentary the other day on how people are traveling to other countries to get insulin because it costs cheaper. People are dying because they cannot afford a simple drug like insulin. So, and this is amongst other drugs that are needed. So I was super excited to see this pull through. However, just like any businessman, there was a very fine print that, you know, I overlooked the first time. And I was confused why I kept reading different American stories about, you know, it hasn't done anything. It hasn't done anything. I was like, what do you mean? He just made this executive order. It has to be doing something. The contingency was he would only be enacting the order if in a meeting he was supposed to be having with other big pharma companies, they would concede to whatever it was he was asking at the time. Now, seeing that there was no action taking place on this executive order, I'm assuming that meeting went the way he wanted it to, which showed me as an American voter, I have to be concerned now about my current president and my future president's self-interests. And so looking at that and comparing the two, so far, one has more than the other. And if that makes me biased, I am truly sorry.
Sorry. So sorry. What next questions do we have for us? We all know voting is great.
Oh.
I'm sorry, considering that happened this year, how important is it for people to go to vote?
Oh my gosh, if you haven't already. Y'all, my polling station opened yesterday. When I tell you that line, y'all, okay. So personally, I have a plan to vote. And I have a day that I have taken off work that I will make sure I will go to that polling place because I know them lines are going to be crazy. If you have not made a plan to vote, in honor of John Lewis, please make a plan to vote. Please, I cannot ask you enough to have a plan. Make a plan for every contingency because we know that people will try to suppress your vote. It is not hard to do, and they will take every loophole that is afforded to them. Please make a plan. Now, following that plan, understand that you will face long lines. And I'm talking hours. I was speaking to a lady the other day. She got there at 7 o'clock in the morning. She didn't leave till 5 in the afternoon. There were thousands of people lined up at her polling place, and she stood there and she waited. Bring snacks. Bring your iPod.
You know?
Bring a book. I don't care. Disney Plus exists. Netflix.
Something. Bring
Netflix at the polling station. Can we get that going? Let's get that trending. Please make a plan. Register if you have not done so yet. And know your polling place, know anything they might be able to block against you. If you're in Georgia, I'm a Georgia voter. If you are in Georgia, please understand that all of your information has to be exactly what the state database matches, or your vote will not count. Know these things. Be ready for these things because they are waiting for us. Quite literally. Trump asked them to go to the polls and wait for us. So, please.
Very true.
Hopping off my soapbox, please.
I have the same answer. Y'all already know I'm going to tell y'all to register to vote. I've got all my friends, my mom, my anybody. If you know Jaleesa, she has already told you to register to vote, and then she also told you to walk to the polling station.
Amen.
And you're about,
Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Oh, okay, we got to move on to the next question because I'm sorry I took that up with my little soapbox. If y'all didn't get the message, vote. But yeah, so what's our next question? What do we have? You both personally, what are you hoping to see in the next upcoming 4 years with whoever wins presidency? Jaleesa, I'll let you start on that one.
Go ahead and say that question for me again.
What are you what are you hoping? I'm sorry. What are you hoping to see in the next upcoming 4 years with whomever wins?
Personally, for me, I am hoping to see some student loan forgiveness. I don't even have that much in debt, you know, compared to the people who are $60,000, $100,000. I'm pretty low on the scale, but there are a lot of people that go to school and don't finish and still have to pay that. There are kids right now that are not physically at their university, but at home, still paying university tuition prices, and they have to learn from their computer. So I need to make sure that even no matter how long this lasts, whether it stops tomorrow or it lasts for the next 8 years, that students and the education system specifically is being taken care of as a priority, because when you start there, you're able to work into the workforce. Then you're able to work into enforcement, and then it just trickles down. So definitely I want to start with education. I feel like it is the most important. Our youth is our future. So it just makes sense to put our priorities there.
Definitely. And, you know, if I didn't mention that before, that is within the Contract with Black America, which you can view at contractwithblackamerica.us. So please go read it, be informed of what legislation and what lobbyists are being pushed. But I do definitely agree with that answer. You know, I think it's the most interesting thing that we have such astounding claims of being the best nation in the world, and our education rates are second to a lot of people. So I can definitely second that motion. However,
we're actually 27th in education. 27th in the world in education, by the way. Go ahead.
I had to say that number. I don't like that number. I'm uncomfortable with that number. I don't know about the rest of you, but I am. Personally, my focus is our prison system. And, you know, I will go ahead and forestate that I'm not biased on anything with the prison system. This is something that has not personally affected me, and God willing, will never. However, it is something that I recognize, as I said, it's a greater good issue. Being a part of the Black community, I see a lot of statistics and a lot of studies and a lot of just American stories of what the prison system has done to these minority families, not just Black families, y'all. Latinx community is dying over here. So, you know, I have a myriad of things, private prisons, baking. However, the important thing that I think people forget is when you have a record and when you have served in federal prison, you lose your voting rights. You lose your rights as an American citizen. And I think people forget, and I think the government has forgotten, that once you serve your time in that federal penitentiary, that time is supposed to be you making up for whatever you did to harm society.
Right.
Why am I still making up that time after I get out?
Right.
There are no programs in place for these people to recuperate them and to put them back into a society and make them functioning members of society. And we get surprised when they end up back in jail. What do you mean? It's set up for them.
Right. Right.
So personally, I am looking for, honestly, I'm done with the word reform. Forget reform. I'm looking for foundational change in the prison system, because not only has it affected, it has killed Americans. And as far as I'm concerned, no punishment is worth death, and that is for not for us to decide. But that is me personally. Anything else?
Well,
anything?
And goodbye, okay? Because I love this town hall, right? I thank you guys so much for tuning in tonight and joining us. Make sure that you join us for our next town hall on Tuesday, October 27th.
I'm so excited. So excited, y'all. We're going to be talking about so many different things. You know, we got the debates today, but this time we have so much more for you, and we are so ready with information for you guys to get out there and vote. Please make sure you are registered if you have not already. But while you're at it, also follow us at either our Boss FM or Black News Alert social media, because we have up-to-date election information for you guys leading up to this election. We want you guys to be as informed as possible.
Yes, if you guys have any suggestions, comments, questions that you would like answered by us in our next town hall, feel free to tag us on Twitter, like I said earlier, at BossFM Digital or at Black News Alerts, or you can use our hashtag BossFM Town Hall. Let us know what you want to hear.
Yeah, and if I haven't said it already, vote. Issue an echo if I could. But once again, I am Michaela.
And I am Jaleesa. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, and you guys have a good night.
Good night.